Good.
Coach, what's your association or familiarity with the other coaching staff?
With Miami, I think in this profession there's always some common ground with guys of place you've worked. I've not worked with Mario, but we both kind of have that connection through working with Coach Saban. It's kind of funny how that tree works and how it blends together. Other than that, William Vallejos on our staff last year. He's on their staff right now, and there's been some strength coaches who I've coached when they were in college or played with his teammates. You always kind of get the different staffs and kind of remember, like, oh, so-and-so's here. Other than that, not much. Small world in the business, but, there's always some common ground.
First time you saw Trinidad Shambles, what went through your mind?
Well, the first time I saw him was on Twitter, and the first thing that went through my mind was, this dude can scoot. That was the first thing. We're just watching on Twitter and just watching his highlight tape and watching him go. And our first thought was, we got to watch some more tape. So we dove in a little bit deeper, me and Charlie that day, and Fisher Ray started watching it and seeing how it was going. And then we were thinking, we got to get this guy in for a visit. He came down for a visit, and it was a great interaction, phenomenal. We did not want to let him leave. I think he had Temple scheduled for after us. I kept telling him, like, don't let him go see North Broad Street, but he'll come right on back.
What about as a passer? What was your initial thoughts as a passer?
Very instinctive. Very instinctive. You can see he saw the field well, which I believe has shown up throughout this season. He's got a feel for the game as far as just playing like a point guard out there. He does have that background in basketball. That definitely shows up in how he sees things. But his highlight tape was truly a highlight tape, and he's kind of got that upper body swing in motion. So Kevin Smith, the running backs coach, came in and he was calling him like Kyler Murray. You got that reaction right away in comparison as far as his running motion. But we all saw the athleticism he had. We all saw the ability he had to spin it. And then, the more you watch, the more you're interactive with, the more you really saw him as a quarterback. And he's really grown in that position this year.
Joe, walk us through the calculus of him committing to stay. You guys obviously had to offer a contract. Yep. Obviously, it's contingent on something that's very ambiguous right now. Just by him going out publicly, it says, hey, he's our guy and might scare other guys off. Just walk us through, how you came to that decision to do that.
Well, we're committed to our players, right? Yeah. So we're committed to him, and I'll leave that to the legal people who have kind of looked into the case and whether or not it has legs, and obviously they felt very strongly about it. So when they told us, like, hey, this is something that absolutely should be ruled in his favor, then we said, let's be committed to our player and back him. That's the best thing we can do, right? And support him publicly and let everyone on the team know that we're going to support our players and we're going to stand by them. That's what we're doing in Trinidad.
Walk me through the momentum that this program has now going into next season with these 2 wins and obviously the retention binge you've been on.
This has been a different week for me personally as far as going through like the portal and the postseason at the same time. I've never experienced that. This is different for me. So talking to coaches and other staffs as well who are in the playoffs this week, there is a chaotic feel to it. There is. Everyone's balancing 2 very complex times what you're trying to get done. But what we've seen is a lot of momentum within our program of players wanting to stay and players wanting to really stay in the boat. There's a lot of things going on that have not been announced yet, that as soon as they do, you'll see the momentum of guys wanting to stay here. And we kind of talked throughout the week. If you were at that Sugar Bowl as a player and you looked in those stands throughout the game, really at the end of the game, and saw the support of those people and how they turned New Orleans into Oxford South, all right, for a weekend, where else would you want to go? How would you want to leave that? How would you leave this fan base that's so supportive? You can do everything you want to accomplish in Oxford. So our guys are really looking to stay home right now. We're looking to get as many things done to give them security.
A lot of headlines this week, Joe, about who's coming, who's going in terms of the coaching staff. Can you drill down for me, who is here, what it means for the guys who aren't coming for the game operation, play calling? I know you've been preparing for it. Just will it have a significant impact on the game?
I'll leave the specifics of who may or may not be here to Pete. I think it's more of a head coaching question. I would say we have confidence in all the guys that are coaching. Look, through this entire process from day one, before we knew whether or not anyone could come back, we immediately put a plan of action into who was going to be working with what position group and how we're going to handle the things we did throughout the season. The amazing thing, immediately when the entire transition happened, our phones blew up immediately with whether it was active coaches, retired coaches, NFL coaches, the amount of people who reached out for support for these kids who wanted to come back and help in any way possible. We were fortunate enough we didn't have to go that route. We had enough people in-house, and then obviously the guys were able to come back.
Yeah.
Now, the entire time that some of these guys have been going back and forth to Baton Rouge, we've still planned and worked, all right, we're kind of doubling up in the room that if they were not to come back, we still had coaches working specifically. For example, Fisher Ray has been coaching our tight ends. Fisher Ray has been on staff working with our quarterbacks the last few years, but he also coached the tight ends the entire bowl process leading into the Peach Bowl several years ago at Penn State. And the tight ends went out there and had a great game that week. And the guys respect him. They listen to him. He's very knowledgeable. So there's a lot of other coaches on staff like that. Patrick Carter, has worked with George McDonald the entire year. If George can't make it back, Patrick's in position to coach the receivers. He's been with those guys every day this entire season, in the classroom and on the field, and he does a great job with those guys. He's very hands-on, very one-on-one. But as far as our players at this point, hey, look, man, it's about the players, right? So show up. We got to give them the information. We got to get them in position. But we got Charlie here going to call plays, and other than that, the players are ready to go.
Beyond the coaching part of it, this is the first of your 3 playoff games that you're playing a team that you didn't play in the regular season. How much different does that make the preparation this week as it might have been for Tulane or for Georgia?
It's still normal game week preparation, but there is not playing a team for the second time. There's kind of a different element that you don't face. When you play a team for the second time, you've got to go back and completely self-scout and look at what happened the first game. And then the matchups become so critical. Matchups are important anyway, but you have to go back and look at what matchups in the first game were really highlighted and what you have to either look to create or look to eliminate on your own way. You don't have that yet because you haven't played them the first time. So this does become very structurally about the scheme, about what they do systematically, how they call the game. But then there is still the matchup piece that they're in any game. It's just the first time seeing those players.
What problems does Miami's defense present for your offense?
Their defense is very fundamentally sound. They've got an outstanding front, and they come off the ball fast. And when you look at the most disruptive defensive fronts in football, they've got the same formula that this Miami team does. All right, they're very explosively fast. Their first 2 steps are extremely quick at getting on your guys. They have the ability to get with speed around them, but they also have the power to drop their weight and go through their chest. So to be able to do that at all 4 spots across the board for the defensive front, that is something you have to go ahead and make sure that you match up and you call the game the right way to really play to our advantage. But also on their back end, they do a very good job. We all saw last week they intercepted the screen pass against Ohio State, took it on back. That's something that shows up based on how they play all the time. They take calculated risks based on tendencies and what they've seen on tape. They do a really good job of coming downhill and playing very aggressive with it. Their nickel and their safety are really also their top blitzers, but they do it from depth. They can disguise it when they're up close to the line of scrimmage. They mix in who's coming, and they do a really good job playing disruptive. If you get staring down as a quarterback, they're going to use their safeties to really spy on you. And they do a good job. All their turnovers, interceptions come from quarterbacks making the mistake of they see the initial rotation, but they don't see the guy that's staring at them. We got to remind our guys the entire week of, hey, you've got to make sure that we're very mindful, especially like where number 8 is. He's a guy right there that makes a living of staring at your eyes and seeing what you're looking at and jumping.
Is there something to be said, or maybe it's invaluable to have a guy like Trinidad who's played for a national championship, who knows what it's like to kind of go through that grind, to be able to lead the team the way you are right now? When you try to talk to him?
Absolutely. Experience is experience. And Trin's won a national championship. He's gone through this longer playoff process, right? It's a different process than when you just had like the Final Four from the beginning or the BCS championship where they just matched you up. So Trin, having gone through this, at least gives him the experience and to share with his teammates the experience of the process throughout the extra month of football. There's no substitute for that experience-wise. And he's been able to seamlessly transition from, Ferris to, Ole Miss and playing in the SEC. And we know how talented the guy is, how accomplished he is as a player. He's been able to prove that. But this is just another stage for him to go out there and play well.
I apologize, just walked up. Are you expecting the other assistant coaches or LSU to be back on game day, or just Charlie?
So I've deferred that in terms of, you can ask Coach Golding about that. But we are prepared, depending on who does or does not show up. We've coached the entire week. Without them, basically planning for no one to be here, but we don't know if that'll be the case or not. So.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're good.
But you said we've got Charlie here to call the plays, and I'm not trying to trick you, but did he get on the plane? Is Charlie here, or is he still at LSU and coming
Charlie's
back?
in the hotel right now watching our practice tape with the staff.
Okay.
Charlie's been here all week.
Okay.
And look, I'll tell you what, Charlie's gone back and forth several times. In fact, he had to fly down after practice yesterday and come back last night because they've got portal visits going on as well. So, between scripting on the plane and having phone calls and talking about notes from practice and making corrections, through FaceTime, it's been a different process for all of us, but we all work together very well. And Charlie's done a terrific job through his entire process. I can't say enough about Charlie in terms of who he is as a person, what he's doing as a coach, and this is a challenge many people haven't had. Now, luckily for him, his father had this challenge, right? His father had to call a playoff and Super Bowl run with the Patriots while he was at the same time recruiting for Notre Dame. So at least he's got a basis of experience of someone in his corner who can educate him on there are challenges, get over it, and get it done.
You touched on the